So good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Lockdown Learning webinar. Today's webinar is on IT disaster recovery versus business continuity, and will be presented by Tonya Orbil, who is an IT disaster recovery professional with expertise in business continuity management and IT risk management. This morning, she's joining us all the way from sunny Germany. We'll have a short Q&A session at the end of the webinar after all the content has been covered. If you'd like to ask any questions, you just need to type in the question box on the control panel to the right of the screen, and we'll do our best to get through these at the end. You will receive a recording of the webinar later today in case you missed any of the session. Before we begin, I'd just like to mention that we are running a live online IT disaster recovery training course in June, which will be delivered by Tonya and is currently offered at a 20% discount. So if you are interested in the subject and would like any further information on the course, please get in touch. So I think we're ready to start. So I'll hand you over to Tonya.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for joining today's session about the relationship between IT disaster recovery and business continuity disciplines. I think that this topic is very interesting since many people nowadays still don't have a clear understanding of what is the difference between these two frameworks and how do they interact. Are these two completely different things, or do they have something in common? What are their differences? Do they overlap, or do they interact with each other? So yes, I hope that this session today will help you to have a better understanding of what are the similarities and differences, and can we use a similar frameworks to successfully implement them. So yes, so we will have a look at the little bit of legislation. We will have a look at plan, do, check, act cycle, and most importantly, we will try to look in depth into the relationship between those two disciplines. So if you read or if you attend the courses about business continuity or IT disaster recovery, you will find that they have a completely different components. So when you speak about business continuity management, you think about contingency planning, policy and program management, business impact analysis, pandemic response, crisis communication, risk assessment, and many other things. And when you think about ITDR, so what do you think about? So first thing would be to have a DR site somewhere, to have a high availability setup of your infrastructure, to have a proper backup policies in place. So retention policies, how many backup copies would you like to keep on site before you transfer them somewhere else, to your remote site, to your tape libraries? Do you have a backup staging concept? How often do you perform failover test? Do you have a storage replication in place? How are you going to get your availability parameters required by business? So do you use cloud services? Do you have, so your software as a service, business as a service, DR as a service, data management as a service concept in place? Do you use private cloud or public cloud? How many remote sites do you have worldwide? What other topologies? So yes, so if you look at those two things, you would think, okay, they are two completely separate disciplines or two completely different frameworks, and they do not have so much in common. And then you look at the standards, like for example, our ISO 22301, the international standard for business continuity management. So when you look at the standard, you would see this framework for business continuity management system, and you would see that disaster recovery is, let's say, a module or a part of the response part or sub-part of business continuity management system. So the question is, how big is ITDR part inside of business continuity management? Is it a small part? Is it a big part, or yes? So how important your ITDR is for you? So what does this diagram does not show is the relationship inside of a business continuity management framework between those different modules. So for example, can you write a proper disaster recovery plan without understanding what are your business availability requirements? So what is the RPO and RTO parameters? So what's your recovery time objective, or what's your recovery point objective? So how much data you can afford to lose? So basically that's the time between your backups. Or what is the acceptable outage? What is the acceptable unavailability time for your business before it will have a very negative impact? So you need to perform business impact analysis first to understand what are your availability requirements, and only then, based on those availability requirements, you can build your DR plan. Also, the disaster recovery plan is written for a specific disaster scenario. So that means that you need to have your risk assessment in place, so your risk analysis in place to show you what are the probable scenarios that will have a negative impact to your business, and based on them you prepare your disaster recovery plan. So yeah, so there are many interrelationship between the modules of inside a business continuity management framework. Yes, so on this slide, it's just another slide to show you that those components are interconnected. And when we talk about tests and exercise program inside of business continuity management, this test and exercise program should include the testing of your IT disaster recovery plans. Or when you think about the crisis management team or emergency team, so in many cases, your IT disaster recovery plan can be triggered by the person with authority, and that person of authority usually is also the member of crisis management team. Yes, so all those modules are very interlinked and interconnected. So yes, so when we think about how big is our IT disaster recovery part for inside of our business continuity management system, there is no answer that would fit everybody. So you have to look at your specific business, at your specific company, and the best tool to identify it is the business impact analysis. So unfortunately, I don't know how many of you have a solid knowledge of business continuity management or business impact analysis. So so the goal of business impact analysis is to first identify the availability requirements. Second is to identify what are your critical business functions and activities and processes. And the third is to identify the interdependencies. So when the company performs business impact analysis as part of business continuity management, that's when they get their RTOs and RPO parameters, and they are able to use them in order to build their disaster recovery plan. And then when they exercise and test their disaster recovery plan, they can see if the recovery time was within the maximum tolerable outage defined by business impact analysis. Yes, so yes, in order to identify how big is the ITDR part within your business continuity management, you can have a look at your critical business functions. So the BIA tells you, okay, what are your key products and services? What are the key processes delivering those products and services? and what are your critical business functions that also has their own RPO and RTO parameters. And then you can see, do I use IT for my daily operations? Is my company making furniture, or is it IT service provider, or is it operating airport, or is it banking system? Do I use IT for my daily operations? Is HR, HR is usually supported by IT, but how critical it is? Can it wait for a week or 4 days, or do I need to recover it? How critical for me are my HR operations? So same goes to finance, production, delivery, marketing, sales, communication, service delivery. So you need to identify which of those critical business functions are supported by IT. And then you can see the total picture. Then I would be surprised if you will have in your company the functions that are not supported by IT. Yeah. Yes, so many people struggling with answering question is, what is IT disaster? And it's not easy sometimes to give an answer. And one of the way to answer this question is to instead of going into polemics for 3 or 4 hours and thinking, oh, is a fire in data center a disaster? Is it, a flood in if impact in data center is a disaster, or if the outage of the core switch, or utility outage for 2 days. So instead of discussing it for many hours, the easiest solution to define a IT disaster is to specify it for your own scenario. So when you're writing your IT disaster recovery plan, you write in that plan and you limit in the scope of that plan to a specific thing. If it's the DR plan for data center, then you define scenario that that can impact negatively your data center. Or if it's a disaster recovery plan for a specific application, that you narrow down what are the risks for this application, and then disaster for you is whatever you specify in your DR plan. So it can be an outage of core infrastructure services for more than 24 hours, or regardless if it's caused by utility outage, fire, terrorist attack, human error, regardless of what was the cause for it, but you look at the end result and you see if you are able to meet your maximum tolerable outage window or not. Yes. Yes. So when you think about the legislation and the standards and that are covering this topic, so there is no specific standard that speaks about disaster recovery, because the ISO 27031, instead of ITDR, it talks about ICT readiness for business continuity. So that's basically your standard is as closest to ITDR as it is at the moment. But this standard is called a guideline, but not requirements. So what does it mean? So ISO 27031 cannot give you a possibility to receive a certificate for successfully implementing ITDR. So for example, for business continuity management, there is a standard ISO 22301 that in the name of the standard, the last word of the title of the standard says requirements. So that means that there are specific requirements listed in that standard that can give you a possibility to receive a certificate for successfully implementing them. So what you can get for your ITDR setup is just an assessment report. So there are many companies in the market that can, let's say, come and audit your ITDR setup. You will not get a certificate, but you will get an assessment report, and that assessment report will as well look at the small things like, was your DR plan based on the availability requirements set up by your business? Did you have your RTOs and RPO parameters specified? Is your backup strategy based on your, policy or DR policy, business continuity policy that you have established in the company? So even in assessment report for ITDR setup, you will see all the time interlinks into business continuity management framework. Yes, so just a second. Yeah, so that's a part about the standards. Yes, the last thing about the standards is that there are many frameworks that you can use as well. So there is BSI in Germany, or there is ITIL framework or COBIT. So you don't have to only look at ISO standards. So there are many more sources, or even this Infinity Paradigm framework for, let's say, assessing the data center resiliency and application resiliency. So yes, be proactive, look for more sources, don't limit yourself to one framework, because in our environment, it's growing so fast that, and unfortunately, there is no specific like a source of truth or a single source of truth. So you have to yes, you have to look for many sources, and you have to try to find a solution that suits you the best. Yes. So sorry, I think I'm rushing a little bit, so because I'm going quite fast through the slides, but yes. So the last thing that I would like to say about IT disaster recovery and business continuity management is that when you think about successful implementation of business continuity management or IT disaster recovery management, it's never-ending process. You establish this framework which you need to support support and operate indefinitely, because to your ITDR and to your business continuity management, you can apply this plan, do, check, act model that's needed for continuous improvement. So if you look at your business continuity management, you have your planning phase with analysis and BIA. You have your implementation phase where you developing your plans, writing response plans and recovery plans. You have your check phase where you doing exercise and maintenance, and in the act phase you review everything and you check if your plans and your current setup is able to respond to customer business availability requirements. So the same plan, do, check, act model can be implemented to ITDR, because you constantly, there are new products are being developed by companies. The availability requirements are changing, and you need to review your policy every time there is a major change on the market, in the product development, or in your strategy or in your policy. So yes, you constantly need to apply this plan, do, check, act cycle to your ITDR as well. So you need to review your DR plans, you need to review your availability requirements, update, maintain your plans and tests, and even this 6 professional practices model that's used by business continuity management can also be implemented to ITDR. So in the corner of the slides, you can see this business continuity management professional practices. So policy and program management, embedding business continuity, and then analysis, design, implementation, and validation. The same concept can be applied to ITDR. You need to embed the ITDR thinking into your company. What does it mean, embedding ITDR concept? That's mean that every time there is a change in your IT configuration, at any point, if it's some department decided to order an extra switch or an extra blade card to the switch or the server, or change something in the backups policy, or or your IT development department is developing a new product or new application, and they're going to install it on some systems. So every time there is new IT project or change in configuration, your ITDR setup needs to be taken into consideration. Your change management process of your, let's say, IT configuration framework, it also has to have this control related to the R setup. So what I wanted to emphasize with this slide is that that the framework that's used for business continuity management can be and should be successfully implemented for ITDR. Yes, so since I rushed through the slides so fast, please accept my apologies for that. Yes, I would like to maybe answer some of your questions to see if there is a feedback, if there is something that you want me to cover. So yes, please feel free to write your questions. Okay, so question number one, just a second. How does the compare to IT service continuation management in the ITIL framework? Okay, that's a good one. Just a second, I'll quickly go through the remaining ones. Yes, so I'll start with the smaller questions, with the short questions. So IRBC is ICT readiness for business continuity. Yes, so ISO 27031, it's a standards that, let's say, replace and name disaster recovery with ICT readiness for business continuity. Okay. Okay, so question, ISO 27031 is a guidelines for ICT readiness for business continuity. Just a second. Yes, that's it. Okay. Yes, so a very, very good question from Dave Robert Show. What are the main issues with management buy-in for testing? So testing means downtime, and downtime costs money. So you need to find a time for testing, and if you're going to perform your test over the weekend, you have to pay overtimes to people, to engineers that's going to be doing that. Sometimes full tests cannot be performed over the weekend because you are making your test in isolated environment, so you don't have your full workload. You have your full workload during the week, and if you would test in the weekends, you don't really know how application will react under pressure of many users access. And another issue with testing, except for the costs and time, that you can plan your tests and you can think about what will be your planned downtime, but there is a high risk of unplanned downtime. So if there were dependencies that nobody think about, if there are some IT infrastructure interdependencies or prerequisites that were ignored or not documented or overlooked, you might run into issues during your test, and your unplanned downtime might be much longer than your planned downtime. So that's the big risk, and people don't want to take responsibility for that. Nobody wants to be responsible for causing a prolonged unplanned downtime. Yes, so which framework or standard you would recommend for telecom and financial sectors? Yes, so that's also a very good question, because telecom and financial sectors, they require a high level of security, and telecommunications actions especially high level of availability and zero downtime, and yes, so they have a high availability requirements and security requirements. So in order to reach those high availability requirements, I would recommend to use the Infinity Paradigm. Infinity Paradigm, it's the framework developed by IDCA, International Data Center Authority, because it takes into consideration as well, let's say, it has more layers than usually. So it has a topology layer, site layer, just a second, topology layer, site facility infrastructure layer, information technology infrastructure layer, compute, platform, and application layers. So from top perspective, if you look at an application from top down, you have your basically 7 or 8 layers. For each of this layer, you can establish your security controls, availability controls, and resiliency controls. This framework takes into consideration all the interdependencies, and let's say you have an application that's running on top a database, and that database has to be connected to a specific storage, block storage or file storage. So the prerequisite or dependency for an application is to have underlying platform available, and not just underlying platform available, but that underlying platform has to be connected to different system, and only by interacting with those different systems, it will create, a layer required for a business application sitting on top of that platform to be able to operate normally. So yes, yes, that's the framework I would recommend. Is ISO going to release a standard such as ISO 22301? I think there have already been an update to ISO 22301, but that's a standard for business continuity management. So I'm not sure if you're asking about a similar update for ISO 27031. Yes, so at the moment, it is planned to have an update for ISO 27301, but I haven't seen much progress. So unfortunately, there is no specific date for when it will be released. Yes, so the question about common threat challenges that you come across when covering ITDR in organizations. Yes, the main challenge is to the challenge number one. IT people do not talk to business, so they your IT services department completely secluded from business, and they sometimes write DR plans without talking to business. So they will write DR plan for a specific RTO, I don't know, for 24 hours RTO or 2 days RTO without talking to business and seeing what are their availability requirements, how much or what RTO do they actually need. Or there is a backup policy, and nobody talks to business, nobody talked which files has the priority, which one are more important, which one less important. When the backup service is outsourced to data management as a service or backup as a service company, nobody checks how often those company exercise their backups. So how often do they check if the backup was successful, what is the restore time, Yeah, so if you do not talk to business, then your IT services, in case of disaster, will not know which application has a priority. You know, if your DR plan is meeting your availability requirements for your business function, or yeah. So yes, the first challenge is the seclusion or separation of IT from the business. What are the other things? Or the lack of comprehensive tools that provides you a visibility of what assets you have worldwide. So it happens quite often that big IT companies, they buy in many other smaller IT companies. They have many very, let's say, different departments worldwide, many smaller data center rooms worldwide, and they don't have a proper visibility tool or like a good CMDB, central management database, to have a visibility of what assets do they have worldwide, and what is the health check of those assets. So whom do they belong to which department they are assigned, what are they used for. So I think that the proper tool that will provide the visibility, like a central management database, is very important, because if, let's say, you had a security or hacker attack or a security incident, or if you have unpatched vulnerable systems in your environment and you don't have that visibility, don't know whom does it belong to, when was the last time it was backed up, what is the antivirus version of that machine, you exposing yourself to many security threats. Okay, next question. In your experience, how many organizations keep business continuity and ITDR as separate areas? Unfortunately, many companies. Yes, I think still I would say that 60%, 65% of the companies treat business continuity and ITDR as a completely different things. Yes, so I think what business should strive for is a better interconnection, integration of those two. Yes, so yes, if I can repeat what is IRBC is. IRBC stands for ICT, Information Communication Technology. So ICT readiness for business continuity, IRBC. Well, I hope it's good now.
Okay. I think shall we wrap up with the questions now, Tonya? Or do you want to? Is there some more that you want to answer?
I think I can answer a couple more. Yes.
Okay. We'll leave you to it for a couple more minutes. Okay.
Yes, it's because I rushed through the slides so fast. Yes.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah. So Alisar McFadden. So thank you for the comment that ISO 27301 was last reviewed and confirmed in 2020. So the ISO 27031 2011 remains current. Yes. Thank you for the comment. Yeah, so I just want to go back to the first question. How does we compare IT service continuation management in the ITIL framework? From Leonard Williams. So yes, so actually service continuation management in ITIL framework, it's very much similar to business continuity management and ICT readiness for business continuity. It speaks about the availability controls and basically all the controls that you need to have in place in order to ensure that your daily business continuity functions are up and running. And I think that the The only difference is that IT service continuation from ITIL speaks about prevention more. So it actually looks at the design and the processes that you need to have in place are in integration with your change configuration management frameworks, and actually is focusing much more on preventing an incident from happening, preventing a disaster from happening. Yes, so not so much about the actual DR procedures, but more about the prevention. Yes. Yes, so I think that's all for the questions. So I think I haven't missed anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Let me just get rid of that. I'll take you over, share my screen. So brilliant. Thank you, Tonya. Great, another great session on that one, particularly on ITDR versus BC. Thank you also to everyone for attending and listening in and asking questions. As I mentioned earlier, you'll receive a recording of the webinar later on today in case you missed out on any of the content covered. And all the previous webinar recordings are also available via our website. We are currently in the process of scheduling further webinars, and information regarding these will be available on our website once final details have been confirmed. So thank you again for joining us. Thanks to Tonya, and we hope you have a great day. Bye for now, and we'll see you all soon.